Coming out of Babylon. How to live until Christ returns. Week 2. It organized into a system. Last week, we stood in the garden. We saw that everything did not begin with visible rebellion or violence or chaos. It began with a lie. It entered as a question. Did God really say? And with that question, something began to shift. What had once been trusted was now doubted. What had once been received was now examined. What had once been surrendered was now taken into human hands. Unbelief gave way to pride. Pride moved towards self-exaltation. Self-exaltation became self-rule. Self-rule hardened into autonomy. Autonomy opened the door to rebellion. What changed first was not the garden. What changed first was the heart. But the lie did not remain in Eden. It moved outward. What began in two hearts would eventually shape families, cities, generations, and nations. Because a sin never stays small. What begins inward builds outward. What is embraced in private eventually appears in public. By the time we reach Genesis 11, humanity is multiplied, yet the same roots remain. The same pride, the same self-rule, the same resistance to God. Only now, it's no longer hidden in a garden. Only now, it's not contained. It has become collective. It has become a group effort. The people gather on the plain of Shinar and then say to one another, making plans, "Come, let us make bricks. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower. Come, let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over the face of the earth." But listen to what is missing. There's no prayer, no surrender, no seeking of God, no concern for what He desired. Only human will, human ambition, human glory. Let us. What began as a whisper in Eden had become a declaration at Babel. In the garden, the lie was, you can be like God. At Babel, the declaration became, we do not need God. But Babel is not only what they built, it is also how the system worked, rising up through the roots. And as they rise, they reshape perception. The moral flip begins. What God calls right starts to feel wrong. What God warns against starts to feel normal. Then influence spreads, sometimes by intoxication, sometimes by deception, and sometimes by seduction. Intoxication numbs discernment, and people stop questioning because the system feels familiar.
The potential.
Deception distorts truth. What is false begins to sound reasonable. What is true begins to sound extreme. Seduction appeals to desire. It promises acceptance, comfort, and a life that feels complete apart from God. That is how Babylon works. Not by force, it works by influence. Not only by rebellion in the open, it works by shaping what people admire, trust, excuse, and pursue. This is the birth of organized rebellion. Not chaos, but structure. Not confusion at first, but confidence. Not weakness, but innovation. They had planning, they had cooperation, they had momentum, but they were building upward without bowing downward. And that is the issue. The issue was never bricks. The issue was worship. Babel is not just a story about an ancient construction. It is a picture of humanity organizing life apart from God. Achievement without submission, unity without truth, identity apart from God, security apart from God, a future built by man, for man, without the rule of God at the center. This is the lie from Eden turned into a structure. What was first inward is now visible. What was first hidden is now established. What was first whispered is now normalized. And when rebellion organized itself, God intervened. He came down to see the city and the tower. What seemed great to man was still small before God. Then language was confused, plans broke apart, people scattered. Why? Because sometimes what falls apart was never meant to stand. Sometimes disruption is judgment, mercy. But Babel did not end there. The tower was stopped. The spirit behind it continued across kingdoms, empires, systems, powers. And if we are honest, we still build Babel now. Not always with literal towers, but with whatever promises worth, safety, and security apart from God. Status, towers of image, towers of wealth, towers of influence, towers of self-made identity, towers of success that do not surrender to God. And that same influence still works. Intoxication, deception, seduction. That is why this is not only about an ancient city. It's about the world around us, and it's about the heart within us. Because before Babylon becomes something around you, it begins by appealing within you. Before a tower rises in public, something is already rising in the heart. So the question is not only, what is Babylon? The question is, where do I see it around me? And where is the pull on my life? Coming out of Babylon, how to live until Christ returns. Week 2, it organized into a system.